Hello and welcome to AdaPulse, the channel that brings you news, some of the hand-picked catalyst proposals, and some of the emerging projects that are coming through the Cardano ecosystem. Now, with all the proposals for Catalyst being submitted right now, and before voting starts, we thought now would be a good time to share the beginner's overview of Project Catalyst, which is Cardano's Treasury and Innovation Lab. Now, this is an article by FLANTOSHI, one of the writers from the AdaPulse team. So before we go on, please remember to like, subscribe and hit that bell button to get notified as soon as we have content available. And remember to comment below. We'd love to hear what you're thinking, and do share far and wide. Remember, we are an education platform. We want to educate as many people as possible. And remember, you can further support the AdaPulse team by delegating your ADA to either Swag, Zod or myself, ATM. So I'm Josh, your presenter for today. Let's go. Considering the audience of people we have for these articles, it might seem like we're beating the same old drum when we say Cardano is a very unique project, even among other blockchains. But, if you will indulge us, we have a solid kick in our drum, which is Project Catalyst. Now, for the latecomers to the space, Project Catalyst is a series of community-managed funds that are launched every 3 months, give or take. And what it does is seek to finance interesting and innovative ideas that are useful for the Cardano community. Funding is decided via weighted voting, depending on one's ADA holdings. It may sound elitist, but at this point, it's the only fair way. While presently, the money primarily comes from the Cardano Treasury, it's intended that as Cardano's transaction volume increases, a portion of the network's transaction fees will be sufficient to pay for the fund's operations. Today, we'll be exploring the good and the bad of Catalyst, but also why it's Cardano's secret weapon. A crash course on Catalyst. One of the major criticisms that Cardano has from outside the community is the apparent lack of institutional adoption. The criticism is a strange one. I mean, crypto purports to distance itself from the powers that be, so not sure that's a dig. Yet, other communities are so desperate to pump their bags that they happily invite the venture capitalists, or VCs, and the status quo they represent, to their blockchains. Fast forward a couple of years and they're indistinguishable from the traditional finance world they were supposed to escape from. On the other hand, Cardano looks inwards. This is why Catalyst is often kind of jokingly referred to as Cardano's VC, as it collects a portion of fees generated from each transaction and use that money to fund projects that are beneficial to the community. It's designed to be community owned and operated from the ground up, and mirrors many of the themes that are typical in normal funding operations. You're not required to let go of your business equity or intellectual property upon receiving funding. The only thing that matters is getting enough votes, and if you fulfill your promises, there are no further strings attached. Project Catalyst is not designed to turn a profit, or at least not immediately. It's designed to effectively allocate the community's joint resources towards things that they find valuable, irrespective of whether or not they make a profit. So, ironically, this is one of the key features necessary to generate the network's effects required to gain widespread adoption. Imagine you have to choose between two internets. One is purely profit driven, while the others are projects that are communal but not necessarily designed to be monetized, like Linux or Wikipedia. Which one would you choose? The one that's optimized for profit, obviously. I mean, the reason is that there is much more to life than pumping your bags, yet somehow the broader crypto community industry intends people to live their entire lives on blockchains without acknowledging that life cannot, and indeed should not, be optimized for profit. Cardano deeply understands the importance of the non-monetized life, and this is why it allows the public to decide the shape the ecosystem ought to take. However, as it tallies the votes proportionately according to how much ADA one has, as I said earlier, it leans in the favour of the rich. So in other words, someone who's already rich can vote for projects that would personally benefit them or their friends, while new entrants have a rather tough uphill battle. So despite the fact that anyone is allowed to put up proposals, it's advisable to go for less popular categories or to build an audience before trying to win any funds, unless you're already quite well known, of course. The oligarchy inherent in proof-of-stake systems like Cardano is not something that is so easily dismissed, and as it stands, might not have a clear counter-argument beyond sort of sophistry and bluster like Boris Johnson. But it's worth mentioning that Catalyst is still in experimental phase, where its operating procedure is subject to change considerably. Remember, this is actually a moving cog of the Voltaire era. And remember, that's the final era of Cardano. We've always said they move concurrently. It's not necessarily one starts and then another. With any luck, we may yet find a solution that is both fair and democratic, as well as incentivizes long-term thinking over short-term populist policies. Trust the process. Each catalyst cycle of proposing, voting and funding has a challenge that it seeks to address. Now, within this challenge, there are different categories that measure different aspects of the theme. However, as is perhaps unavoidable with large piles of cash that are divvied up, these categories and even the challenges themselves are subject of occasional controversy. Like, some people might believe that some categories are frivolous or get too political, or even that too much of the fund is dedicated towards them. How deep you want the drama rabbit hole to go is entirely up to you. It's basically office politics meets government bureaucracy sprinkled with some tech startup bullshit. In theory, there are 3 phases that each fund undergoes. So you have innovation. Ideas are proposed, refined, and reviewed by other users. Governance. User register their wallet, upvote, downvote proposals, and then the votes are tallied. And then there's the execution. So funds are paid out and reviewed every month. In theory. I mean, if you delve into the Catalyst long enough, you'll notice some curious bits and bobs. For starters, it's difficult to get concrete information regarding Catalyst. Official sources, even on the same website, can contradict each other, or they're outdated, or what they say isn't necessarily what happens in practice. Much to the chagrin of people participating in the system, any date given is far from written in stone. We're talking dried mud at best, as it's subject to change at random and with seemingly little explanation. But it also bears mentioning that the system is accidentally evolving into becoming quite abusable. Now, partially in a bid to encourage people to apply, the execution phase, where budgets and progress are reviewed on a regular basis, has devolved into just this rubber stamping bureaucracy. We should demand some transparency and far more intense accountability when we give money to members of the community. More broadly, though, we should stop acting as if Catalyst funds aren't our money. Every stakeholder is a partial owner of these funds, and don't forget that. I mean, this is not an expose, but there have definitely been people who have abused public's trust and or misused the funds given to them. The OGs know what I'm talking about. But when these funds are mismanaged, they're wasting your money, not IOHK's. Being the squeaky wheel who always demands proof for projects' claims, as well as timely updates, might not be a popular measure, either because people might underestimate its importance, or fund winners have it in their best interest to downplay its utility as well. But it's a necessary role. All in all, it's a dangerous cocktail of indifference that we must overcome if we are to mature as an ecosystem. Conclusion. Catalyst has fantastic promise, and considering we're only at the 9th fund and it's already been responsible for giving the seed funding for MinSwap, which became the largest Cardano DEX, this means it's working. Yet, the large amounts of money involved in the protocol inevitably attract both the greedy and the unscrupulous. Already we're beginning to see the start of moneyed interest coiling and strangling the potential of this awesome protocol we have. This is a danger, and we've got to overcome it. But you know, we have faith in the Cardano community that in time they will do exactly that. Our community is different from the rest. We're like one big family, all working in their own way to a solid set of principles, but we must remain vigilant and take back the ground that our ignorance has given away to these parasitic forces. Catalyst, if used appropriately, may yet become Cardano's secret weapon, but we must be careful. If we let it fall into the control of the wrong hands, it could be fucked. And that brings this article to a close. Remember, the full article can be found on the AdaPulse website, along with all the other articles that we don't always have time to make the videos for. And do remember to click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell button so you get notified as soon as we've got content available. And do leave comments below. I say this all the time. We want to hear what you guys are thinking, and it's really good for us if you do so. And do share. Share far and wide, because we're an educational platform and we want to educate as many people as possible about our awesome network. Now, remember, you can also further support us by delegating your ADA to either Swag, Zod, or myself, ATM. And I'm Josh, your presenter for today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.